Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
Reality radio for a really great future. We're talking real money.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the neighborhood. Welcome to a little Talking Real Money neighborhood chat. I'm Don McDonald. Today, we have a very special edition of Talking Real Money as we wander over to the bookcase and we pull out a book. Oh, look, it's yellow and it's lovely. And it's written by a good friend of the program who's hiding behind the book. Wait, I'm going to reveal him right away. Hold on right about now. Ladies and gentlemen, from the very popular podcast, Stacking Benjamins, we have, I'm so excited, Joe Saul-Sehy. Let's hope that works in the editing. I have no clue. Joe Saul-Sehy, my bud from the basement, man.
How are you?
I am
so happy to be here.
I am so glad you are here finally after myriads of technical difficulties with my brand new Mac Studio, Apple. My brand new Mac Studio. Anyway, Joe is with us today because, well, you know, Tom and I are on Stacking Benjamins now and again, and we love visiting the basement and hanging out with Joe and the gang. And we're just really excited because Joe has done something extraordinary. Joe has actually penned a book.
I did.
Dang, you know what? It's really pretty darn good. What's it called? I'll show you again. Stacked, stack, 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 stack. It's like an echo. The book has an echo. And it is all about, well, you tell us, Joe, what's this book about? What's it for?
Well, it is, and by the way, thank you so much for having me on. The reason for the book, frankly, is that I've always wanted to write a book so I could get on Talking Real Money, and now that I have, I can announce my retirement. So that's pretty much why I wrote the book. That's
we're planning on ending the show with this episode anyway, so it all worked out.
We're all set. Actually, what's funny, Don, is that I wrote a book. It took me 10 years, and I talk a lot about surrounding yourself with smart people like you and Tom. And our
and the brain trust at Stacking Benjamins. you have a pile of really good people there. Well, except for Doug.
That's right, except for Doug. Yeah, I had sketchy, but everybody else, Paula Pant, Len Penzo, some smart people, OG. But I have a coach who for the last 10 years, I was telling her that I was going to write a book, and we got to maybe down the 7-year mark where she did what a good coach does and said, okay, are we writing a book or are we just talking about it? Because I'm tired of you bringing it up every stinking week that you're going to work on the book and you don't. And I seriously didn't. So I got serious about it. I wrote the book and I gave it to an alpha reader. And I think everybody needs these alpha people in their corner. For me, it's my spouse, Cheryl. I hand Cheryl the book and Cheryl had it done, I think for like 18 minutes before she said, this sucks. Like it was.
Don't you love the blunt honesty of your spouse?
I do. I truly, truly do. And I think that's why we get along. I love the Gordon Ramsay coaches, the Simon Cowells that say exactly what everybody's thinking. But with Gordon Ramsay as an example, for people that don't know him, big chef on TV, works with these restaurateurs that are failing. But at the end of the show, he loves them. He wants them to succeed, but he gives them the tough love. And so she gave me very tough love. And you know what the tough love was, Don? It was that the advice in the book was good. Directionally, it was fine. It was how to build a foundation about your money, but it was written much more like a Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman. I am the smartest guy in the universe when it comes to money, and here are the tips from on high. And as you know, I'm much more about surround sound. I think we've got to make these conversations lighter. We got to make them more fun. And this book wasn't fun. It wasn't.
So what she said is it wasn't you, basically.
That's exactly what she said. Yes.
Yeah, it did. It wasn't your voice, because this is definitely, I've read the book. This is the voice of Saul-Sehy. And of course, there's a little Emily in there too. Yes. Emily.
Yeah. And Emily, by the way, talk about surrounding yourself with smart people. I know me, and I knew I wouldn't get this project done by myself. It took so long the first time, and I'm surrounded by all these great people and these great writers. And Emily has a wonderful book called The 5 Years Before You Retire. She has another book about ending financial stress. But the thing I know, because I get to talk to her behind the scenes sometimes, she and I laugh our heads off with these dad jokes and these just horrible puns and stuff. And so I called her up and I said, hey, I want to make kind of a campy, but very legitimately good book about money management. And I want it to be foundational. And we actually took a very campy thing that kids use, the Cub Scout Wolf Guide, where you get, they're not chapters, Don, they're achievements. And the easy achievements are at the beginning of Cub Scouts.
Oh, that's why we got the badges at the end of the chapters.
We do, yes.
Oh, so I can print those out and take them down to the shop and have them embroidered and put them on my sash or something.
Yes. And as part of getting your achievement, as you know, it's not just about what you know, which we do a good job of, I think, teaching you what you need to know, but you have to check some boxes to show proficiency before there's the place for your mom to sign it to get the badge. So you have to, because it's not about what you know, it's always about what you do, right?
Can I have my wife sign it? My mom's a long way away.
Well, I won't tell if you don't tell. So
all right. I just want to pass. I want to be successful.
So
what do you cover in here, though? I mean, what it's apparently about, because it says that it's really serious. And it's about money management. Yes. So what's the money management stuff that people are going to get out of this?
Yeah, the book is broken into 4 parts. And I think this is a great way to think about your money because, you know, people look at crypto and NFTs and what's hot and all that stuff. You're not going to find this in here. Don't get me wrong. If you're interested in crypto and NFTs, when you finish the book, you'll know where to put it. But it starts off with stacking your first Benjamin, right? Which means beginning with the end in mind by using a much better goal setting technique than most people use, figuring out how your budget works, getting your credit score in case you're going to need it. Our goal is to never need credit, but if we do, to clean up whatever messes you have out there, get your debt managed, get a good debt strategy. So stacking your first Benjamin's the first part. Second part then is stacking Benjamins, and it is about investing in the basics of how to invest. Then the third is protecting your Benjamins, which most investors, as you know, Don, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about insurance. They don't want to talk about risk management. But I think that's so important because if you don't have a good risk management strategy, it can all go south in a hurry. And then the last section, which is really for the big time money nerds, the last section is stacking Benjamins on top of your Benjamins. And that piece is how to get rich quicker. Number one, written with a very sexy title on purpose. How to hire advisors that won't bleed you dry. How to really get technical about tweaking your investments. You know, we talk a lot about fees. And don't get me wrong, fee fighting is super important. Making sure that you don't overpay for investments is a big part of winning, but equally as big is knowing how to diversify your investments better. And there's this thing called the efficient frontier. And I hate that name because it makes it sound so hard. People go, I don't have time for that. You know what? The efficient frontier is not all that difficult. And so we kind of dive into some of that nerdy stuff.
Well, tell us the efficient frontier nerdy stuff for those who are sitting around going, What in the heck is he talking about? And it sounds confusing.
It does sound confusing. So if you've ever done one of those things at your job that say, hey, if you're this age and you're looking at getting this type of return on your money and you want the least amount of risk, diversify this way. Okay. So I actually tell this it is made up. It's a made up story of what I think Dr. Harry Markowitz was doing when he created this efficient frontier that won the Nobel Prize. And that, by the way, so many things are built on, as you know, Don, target date funds built on the efficient frontier, right? A lot of the indexing that happened later on came from Dr. Markowitz's work early on. Many of the people that run some of the biggest and most attractive fund companies like dimensional funds, those guys are all guys that built...
we love.
Yeah, and they built what they built on Markowitz. So here's what I thought. This is Joe's idea of how this happened. Probably not true. It's a theory, could be a bad one, but this is what happened.
Hey, make stuff up. You're a writer.
Yeah. So Markowitz realizes he's got some money in cash and he's got some money in small company stocks. And he realizes he can plot these on like the old axes, like you did in 3rd and 4th grade. You can plot them with on one hand going south to north. You can have 0 return and then high returns up at the top, and then left to right, you'll have very little risk out to very high risk. So up and right equals very high risk, very high return. Low and left is very low risk, very low return. And he plots cash. He plots cash in the lower left, almost no return, but almost no risk. And then he plots small companies up at the top, up and right. And he goes, man, I wonder what we do with large companies, with international, with all these things. So now he's getting excited. So he goes over and pours himself a glass of wine, puts on some music like any self-respecting money nerd would, and he puts large company stocks. And that dot is kind of between the two. And then he realizes that bonds are a little closer to no return, but also a lot less risk. And then he gets really crazy because he finishes the first glass of wine. You know how after the first glass, the music sounds a little better. Things seem a little bit more fun. Well, now he's rocking and rolling. So he goes, what if I do 50% stocks, 50% bonds? And he plots that. Then he's like, what about if we throw international stocks and U.S. stocks in with the third bonds? And he starts filling up this thing with dots. And what he notices after he accidentally finishes the bottle of wine is that he has this imaginary line where there is no dots north and no dots left of this imaginary line. It kind of makes this arc, right, along this 0 return to high return and no risk to high risk. And
is it possible, though, that the arc was because he was a little tipsy and he meant to draw a straight line?
Well, I think it shook a he was tipsy. Yes, it could have been straighter, but I mean, after Chardonnay, like who knows? Yes. So this is what this means for all of us, because there is this imaginary line where there are no dots north and no dots left. And people are listening, so they're going, what the hell does that mean, Joe? Here's what it means. You can take wherever you're at right now and you can plot it based on your time frame, your tax bracket, and you can place a dot on how you're investing today. And there's 2 easy moves you can make, neither of which are the right one. And then there's a third one that's the right one. You can move that dot up where there are no dots anymore. And what that means is you can take no more risk than you're taking today in your portfolio and historically reconfigure your asset classes so that you get a higher return and no more risk. Now, it's based on historical results, which means the future does not equal the past, but it equals it enough, as you know, Don, that we're going to do much better if we move it toward that line. The other thing we can do is if you're not sleeping that well at night, right? You feel like you're taking too much risk. We can keep the same return and just move left. And if we move left, we get the same return we're getting today, but a hell of a lot less bumpy ride than we got. And by the way, neither one of those are the right move. The right move, obviously, is what return do you need to reach your goal? Find that point and then look at what those investments are. So there's some places. There's a place called Portfolio Visualizer, which is free. You can go and play around with that and you can find that at work. You'll see all of these charts. If you need an 8% return, 10% return, whatever it is, they'll give you some simple ones. Most of the asset management companies have it. The big problem is we call it efficient frontier, which makes it sound just absolutely horrible. Absolutely.
Yeah,
horrible.
and one of the more interesting observations that came from that work by Markowitz et al. Was this is a very simple discovery that you think all bonds are pretty much created equal, and that the longer the maturity, when you go out to 20 and 30-year bonds, that additional yield is has comparable risk along that curve, and that's not the case. When you get out to the very long maturities of bonds, the risk is substantially higher for little or no additional return. That's what Joe's talking about. You gotta find that sweet spot in there, and that's what the efficient frontier really is. It's a sweet spot.
Well, and that is so interesting that you say that, because this idea of diminishing returns, right? We can take more and more and more risk, and we're not going to get the payoff for it anymore, really comes from this research. I mean, if it didn't come from it originally, it proved it, that, you know what, going all small cap with your investments versus a mix of small, international, and large ain't worth the risk.
Right.
Like, just, you're going to get a hell of a lot more bounce, and you're going to get maybe marginal returns over 20 years.
And so this book is going to cut through a lot of that, the confusion, and lay it out more simply.
Well, that's my goal. You know, like you, Don, I've been interviewing people for a long time. We're on episode, I think, 1200 of Stacking Benjamins, and
Gosh,
so I
we're
get
only
to
at 1,000. We're so far behind.
I get to talk to so many people and have so many discussions. And what I realize is that the number of on-ramps that are fun and relaxed and campy while still being competent are very, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of competent books out there. There's a ton of competent videos, books, podcasts. But when it comes to ones that are an on-ramp guide,
yeah,
and there's not that many, and
so
I feel like we're leaving too many people behind.
Be honest with me from all the interviews, because you see, we're very insular here at Talking Real Money. We let like 4 people on. That's it. You know, we got like the guy who wrote Trillions. We got him. We got Paul Merriman, because he's a good friend, so we let him on. And we have I can't even think of a 4th one right now. I'm sure we've done someone else, but with your experience with all of these guests, you said some of these books are good. Be blunt. You don't have to name names, but how many are just totally full of it?
You know,
be honest.
Okay, so of the ones that make the show, I'm going to say none now.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, because here's the deal, Don, and we get 70 people a week that try to get on our show, 70.
Wow.
And we have room for one, because one we're going to reach out for, and one's going to be somebody like you that we know in the community. So for our roundtables on Friday, it's always going to be somebody we've already curated, we know, and they're not going to do something bad. The other one, we're reaching out to them, right? So we know them. And of those 70, my producer, Karen Repine, and we're going to make sure we do a good
Karen.
job. She's awesome. But I'll tell
She's
you,
terrific.
To answer your question, though, I've had 2 interviews where they aired, but I had to chop the hell out of them, and they were way early on, and I learned some lessons. One was a guy, and this was great. The football season was getting ready to start, and this guy compared finance with football. And he talked about how you're the quarterback of your team, and how your small company stocks are like the receivers, where if they catch it long, it's great, but they're going to drop a bunch of passes. So I thought this was great. Well, the guy comes on, and he just, God bless him, he just doesn't know how to tell a story, Don. So I'm like, okay, so tell me, we got the football season come up. This is great. This is timely. It's going to be really fun. Tell me about how it's like a football team. He goes, well, you know, because your quarterback is kind of like you, and you've got the football. And I go, okay, so what do you do with the football?
What do I do with my football now?
Yes.
Coach?
Well, you take it and you hand it off. Okay, who do you hand it off to? Well, you hand off to a running back. Okay, so what's the analogy with the running back? Oh, the running back is like your ground game, which means your daily budget. And it was always one sentence. He would give me one sentence, and I had to pull this story out of this guy. Oh my, it was such a fun idea for a book. And he was just, and then of course I had the guy on, and this is an early mistake a lot of podcasters make. He's a tax expert. And I said, so, and we'll pretend his name's Don, just because you're sitting here.
Sure, I'll be your guest.
I go, so Don, tell me about a tax strategy in the book that can clearly change people's game, that can make things better. He goes, well, you got to have a great tax strategy because of the way that the book says that it is. Like, you have to have a great tax strategy, period. If you don't have a great tax strategy, it's going to be horrible. And I go, okay, well, what is a great tax strategy? He goes, well, in chapter 2 of the book, I go through this wonderful tax strategy, which is going to change your life. It's going to change your game, and you definitely should check it out. And I go, okay, what is that tax strategy? He goes, well, we followed up in chapter 3 with an even deeper dive into the tax strategy that changes everything. And you need to make this. All he's doing is selling the book. All he's doing, he will not. I literally, in that interview, I had to hit pause, and I had to say, this is not going to air if you give me nothing. If you continue to just sell your book, number one, nobody's going to buy it. I mean, nobody's going to buy it, right?
Right.
I hate
because they have
that
no
stuff.
idea what it's about, except some brilliant strategy.
Well, and who wants an infomercial? Right. I mean, who wants to listen to an infomercial? So anyway, he was not good. On the other hand, when we talked to Susie Orman, it was fun.
It was?
It actually was.
Was it? Was it?
All I wanted from Susie was to see her peacock feathers come up. I'm super rich, and I'm very awesome, and it was actually a way better conversation than I thought it was going to be. I enjoyed talking to Susie.
I've never talked to her, but I did have Chuck Jaffe on one time from the Boston Globe.
I love Chuck.
I love Chuck, and Chuck's whole thing was I don't know how Susie came up, but throughout the podcast, he would just occasionally blurt out, "I hate Susie Orman." I hate Susie Orman. So I've used that for years as just a soundbite. I hate Susie Orman.
That is so Chuck. That's so Chuck.
So the book, though, you're not. One of the things I hate about investing books, I'm going to preface this with my little thing. I hate investing books that tell you, because you said how to make more money.
Yes.
Are there really, though? Everybody wants that. They want a magical way to make more money with less risk. I don't want to take any risk, but Don, can you tell me how I can get 7% like I used to get on my bonds? Do you have any of that stuff in there?
We do, but the problem is it ain't magic. And let me give people a few. So this is not an infomercial. Why don't I just give you some of these, because these are some of the keys. Number one, the way to make more money is to actually make more money. Study after study shows.
Oh, wow. That was so profound.
I know. Studies show, and we go over how this works, because I think it's so important, Don. Your boss wants to give you a raise, and there's so many side hustle opportunities here. Now, I do this in the book, and I'm going to caution everybody, do not go make more money until you do the lockdown, meaning get your budget in order. Understand that the goal here is to separate your expenses from your income. I lived this fallacy for a long time where I thought that if I just made more money, my problems would be solved. It isn't. If you don't have a good system to lock down your expenses and then make more money so you can pay down your debt, build your emergency fund, get money invested, nothing changes. You're going to be a disaster with $250,000 like you were with $100,000, like you were with $30,000. More money does not solve the problem. But negotiating that rate, especially this year, Don, I mean, think about this. That consumer price index number that came out, 7.5%. If you don't get a 7.5% raise this year, you are falling behind.
You're getting a pay cut.
You have to get a raise this year. But when you get that raise and you've separated the budget out from what you make, you need to automate. You had the key to success is not, don't get me wrong, you can be Warren Buffett and be a guru with your investments. Even way before that, the way to get to riches is to automate your money. Make it go without you having to think about it. Do not write checks. Do not put money.
So you're talking about bills, not only investing automated, but bill paying automated, all of the automated stuff, just to make sure it's all done.
Well, I'll tell you what I like about bill pay. Cheryl and I have a weekly meeting where we actually look at it. We do have it automated, but we look at it every week because when things are automated and Netflix goes up or Amazon Prime goes up or whatever it is, if it's automated, they will just automatically charge you more. So Cheryl and I have a weekly meeting. It's only 20 minutes long because it's got to be fun. If it's not fun, you won't keep doing it. It's always over pancakes or wine, depending on the time of day we do it, to keep it fun. And we have a timer. At the end of 20 minutes, we have a timer so that we're done. And all we do, we look at how we spent money the week before, and then we talk about how we're going to spend money next week. Twice a year, we look at our asset allocation, we look at our investment strategy, and we make sure that we're what's called rebalanced. That's a bigger topic that we probably don't need to get into today. But just twice a year, we look at our investments. But I'll tell you what happens. Because that meeting's fun, we have those bigger, deeper conversations we need to have the rest of the week. And those are natural. Those are organic because we're just driving somewhere. And because we have that meeting, we now have these deeper talks later. But it's got to be around this fun idea. So while to answer your question specifically, I do like automating the bills. You still have to look at the bills every week to make sure that they're not pulling a fast one on you.
Yeah, that's good advice. In the book, though, and I know this comes up, but what about all of the occasional hot things that occur? Particularly on the interweb these days, where you've got the hot Redditors and the meme stocks and crypto NFTs. What do people do with all that noise?
Here's the cool thing is that if you begin in the chapter 1 of your life, right? If you start your chapter not with what's the best investment, you start your own book, but with what are my goals, you then are going to be attracted to investments that meet the goal. And it gets rid of this fallacy that some investments are good and some are bad. And don't get me wrong, there are good and bad investments. But the thing, Don, I guess that I'm trying to say is it's okay for an investment to be good and not be for you. It might not fit. So the first thing to do is to find your fit. And the way to do that is to say, okay, I grew up in Southwest Michigan, which is farm country. And so I use a lot of crop analogies. So you plant corn in the spring and you harvest it in the fall because it works. And centuries of farmers have proven that it works. You don't plant corn in the middle of winter and pull it out 3 weeks later, right? So the first thing I want to look at, every investment out there is like a crop. And I need to figure out which crop fits my growing season. And then I plant that crop. And by the way, I don't go pull it out early. I don't go mess with it halfway through the growing season because it's gonna kill the corn or whatever it might be. So I like beginning with what's my growing season. Look at which investments historically have met that, which seeds I need to plant, and then plant those seeds and keep the garden weeded. I mean, that is the key to success.
I'm sorry. I keep when you're using this analogy, I keep thinking Chauncey Gardner in Being There. Did you ever see Being There?
I love that. I love you know, my favorite line from that movie is when he just says, "I like to watch."
Yeah.
And for people that haven't seen the movie, they think he's being kinky, and it turns out that he's being very straightforward, far more straightforward than anybody.
But he has these little moments of brilliance when he's not. He's of below average intelligence, but everything has a season in the garden.
Yes.
And that's what Joe Saul-Sehy's next book is. Everything has a season in the money garden.
It does. It absolutely
okay,
does.
so the book. I want to let Joe. You had a book tour, right? You're still on it?
I do. Yes, 40 cities. Come hang out with a bunch of like-minded people.
How do people find out about your book tour, Joe?
Stacking Benjamin. Thank you, Don. StackingBenjamins.com/stacked. They're all free, and we have some great partnerships with bookstores and libraries, but in a lot of towns we're at microbreweries, so you can have a beer and chat money nerd
That's
stuff.
the Harry Markowitz method of book touring.
It is.
Get a drink.
By the way, Dr. Markowitz, I apologize. I'm fairly certain in real life he wasn't getting loaded, but it sure makes it more fun to think about the efficient front.
I love Harry. I loved his wisdom. He was so smart. This favorite thing I think he ever said was, investing is boring. It should be like watching paint dry or grass grow. If you want excitement, don't go to your Merrill Lynch office. Go to the casino. That's paraphrasing.
Well, that's fantastic. I got to tell you, Don, I think he's still alive.
Is he?
I think he's.
I have no idea. Yeah, I think he is too, because he's always doing stuff with Mark Ebner at Index Funds Advisors. So yeah, he must still be out there kicking somewhere.
I know he's an
got
advisor.
to be 90 something.
He's got to be, because when I heard he was still alive, I was surprised because he did this work in the 50s, I think.
Yeah.
But he, I know he's an advisor was an advisor for Acorns.
Was he on their advisory staff? Well, ladies and gentlemen, my friend Joe Saul-Sehy wrote this lovely, lovely book that is rising up out of the bottom of your screen and heading off through the top of your screen without any help from me, magically. And I'll figure out a way to do the special effect or something. It is a really... Oh, Joe, wait, before you go. I heard cool stuff. The book, it's gotten some notice.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled with thank you for bringing that up, because I'm thrilled with the reception that it's gotten. Forbes just published a list of the top 5 personal finance books to read in 2022. Mm-hmm. I saw that, and obviously, like a lot of people, I clicked on it because, hey, that's cool. We were number one. I
bet that was a very pleasant surprise.
That was so nice. I was so flattered. And then the second was a group called Axiom that does a lot of business related stuff, B2B stuff, has a competition every year where they award gold, silver, and bronze to books in 15 different categories, business categories. But they have a personal finance category, and we took gold in that this last week as well.
Well, congrats on both. And take it from Joe. About this whole stacking Benjamins thing. You got to do the work. He's a great example of it. You cannot stack your Benjamins by printing them in your basement like he did. And the lesson he learned was, if you print them too big, they won't take them.
Yeah, they won't take the one on my wall. No. I took that down to my bank. And
he thought bigger must be better. But well, that's in the case of money, size does not matter.
Yes.
We're just leaving it there.
If people are only listening to us, I have a huge $100 bill on my wall. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for the podcast audience. I always forget about them when I'm doing a video. I go, of course they can see it. By the way, if you're listening to us, you can also go to the Talking Real Money YouTube channel and watch this whole thing. So if you have been, you're sitting around listening to Stacking Benjamins going, I wonder what that Joe Saul-Sehy guy looks like. Well, now you can find out. And
Face
then
for radio.
Go. Don face McDonald, definitely face for radio. Joe, thanks so much. Go tour your book, meet a lot of cool people, do some cool podcasts, and thanks so much for being a part of this one and for being a good friend of the show. We really appreciate you.
Well, thanks, man. As you know, I love you and Tom so much, and you guys do such great work, and I feel a lot of gratitude right now. So thank you, brother.
Well, you're the best, man. Joe Saul-Sehy, his book, Stacked. Check it out. And by the way, just go to stackingbenjamins.com that's it, right? Stackingbenjamins.com.
Yeah, it's stackingbenjamins.com/stacked if you want more on the tour. Yeah.
But if you just want more on the Joe.
Yes,
and
on
the
show.
Joe. Joe and the show. Go to the podcasty thing. All right, thank you all. Take care of yourselves. I'm Don, hanging out with Joe Saul-Sehy, and what we do for almost all of our life is sit around talking real money.
We hope you realize that the information provided on Talking Real Money is for informational, educational, and hopefully enjoyable purposes only. Providing personalized financial planning or investing advice takes time, so please consult with a really good fee-only fiduciary investment, tax, or legal advisor. We know a good one. Investing must always involve risk. In other words, you can and probably will lose money at times. Also, as much as you want it, no one can accurately and consistently predict the future, so past performance doesn't tell you a darn thing about what the future will bring. Unlike many other programs that say something similar, Talking Real Money is not trying to get you to buy or sell any financial products or securities. Instead, the program is provided as a public service by Appella Capital, a fee-only registered investment advisor. Thanks for listening, and please visit TalkingRealMoney.com for more information and disclosures. To keep the lawyers happy.